So you go back to New York,
Yeah.
and you're working for Giggle.
Yep. Doing the Tenderloin
Or,
shows.
yes.
Yep.
So was it nice to be back because you were around all the guys?
For sure. Yeah. Then we started. That's when we started doing sketch comedy.
So they were pumped that you were coming back.
For sure. Yeah.
How quick was that?
And we picked up Q.
Whoa.
We lost the original member Mike, and then Q had come in.
So when you guys all met in, so Mike, you, Sal, and Murr met in Catholic boys' school,
And
right?
so Q was there too.
Q was there too.
Same school. Yeah.
all
I
met
knew
at that
from
school.
there. Yeah. But he didn't form the original Tenderloins. He was doing his own thing.
Gotcha.
And then once I came back, then Mike grew up. He got a real job. He's flourished as like in PR, I think it is. He's a vice president of some company, bigwig, and guys, I can't just do this anymore. So he left, and I left a hole. And Q was good at writing, and Sal and Q had been bonding over at Sal's bar. So Sal was like, "Hey, we should talk to Q about coming in to fill the spot." And he had guested on a bunch of improv shows with us, so he was familiar with us.
How many funny dudes were there at this Catholic boys' school?
5. And we all made it.
Oh, shit.
We all made it.
What a great answer. Because that was my first thought was like, were there other guys, like was there a guy named Travis that was on the fence?
He's like,
just didn't have the
come on,
availability?
guys. Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm busy Thursday.
Yeah, sorry.
Fuck that up, Travis. How's your soccer career? I have a soccer tournament. It was we just clicked, and then when Q came in, it was the same time when we started doing film sketches and MySpace and YouTube was blowing up.
Yes, that was huge for you guys.
That was
Changed the game.
That was that. And then because we were able to control the comedy, I got into editing and directing and loved it. So me and Murray were directing and editing them mostly, and Sal and Q were like writing them, and
everybody found their role.
Yeah, everybody found their role. We just worked good together.
People don't realize too, in any sort of group that's coming up like that, like. Egos can definitely take over. Hopefully, when you're getting going, everybody's just all about. Yeah. There is no ego, which sounds like that was the case. We're just like, what can you do? Great, I'll do this. I'll do that. Yeah. I don't care about getting the credit for directing and editing. I just want. I feel like I have the best grasp on making our shit good, and everybody trusted you.
Yeah, we'd always say that. It's like you're better at this. You do this. Like I would always say, like if we had to do something, like Sal's our actor. Sal's just a good actor.
Yeah,
Sal do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know how to direct Sal. Let me direct Sal.
Right.
Let me do that. Things like that. Then Murr and Q. Like Q was always like he liked writing. I think that was his favorite thing to do too. Yeah. So and he brought a different type of humor than the rest of us. He's a little bit darker, a little bit edgier, and it's a nice balance because he would bring it down, we'd lift it back up, and then we'd find a new different type of middle ground. It wasn't like all zany. And then if it was zany, he would base it in reality, which was really fun. So.
How quick did you guys find each other's groove in the live shows? Was it like an easy translation?
The improv stuff, we pretty much knew like how to tee each other up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And just let them go. It's like, oh, here comes a tornado, Joe. Like things like that, shit like that would happen. But I became the button guy pretty quick.
Yeah.
I'd be able to clear out stuff.
Yeah.
Murr was great at setting stuff up. Sal was great at making it real. Q was just very likable when like people really just connect with Q. He's like a guy's guy, you know what I mean? He just really has that about him. He's just he's charming.
Just like in New Kids on the Block, like any boy band, you need, like you guys all bring something different, and it's like, it must have been fun to get to the point in the show where like people are like having favorites or being like, I'm like this guy, right?
Team, yeah, it was like team. That's it. The network started selling team shirts, Team Joe, Team Murr, Team Q,
Smart
Sal,
dude,
which is fun. And then people would put them up against, and you'd always hear the same thing. I love all of them, but Sal's my favorite. I love all of them, but Q's my favorite. You'd hear that all the time. And I was the first one that actually had to quit my job, so I was all in. So that's what made me so heavy into the production and directing. I truly I took that over because it was my job. That was it. Sal was still bartending, and he owned a bar in Staten Island.
When the show was on?
The show was on season 1 and 2. Q was a fireman working overnights and coming in. He would come right from a 24.
What?
And work. And then Murr was working in development for the production company that was producing the show. So he would be out there like pitching during the day, and then the next day he'd come
I had no idea Q was a fire. So he'd literally be putting
out of fire
or carrying somebody out of the house, and they'd be like,
and the next day he'd be like, zoinkers, and he'd like run around. He's like, this is your job now. We were also getting paid nothing, so it was like completely they needed the jobs.
Yeah.
I was resting on the Nordstrom, windfall that I had. I was on those laurels.
Yeah,
I had that in the bank, a good $350 on my Discover credit card, being like this better work. So
I was gonna say, at what point, when you're doing the show like that, you guys are so excited, right? You can't believe that because I know you guys had tried a handful of times too, right? Like prior to this.
Yeah, 3 failed.
So how does the mentality change? Are you just less not less invested, but just more, you got thicker skin to be like, all right, this is, or did you have a sense of like, all right, this version of what we're doing feels the strongest?
When we saw it, because when we saw it, like, we're not actors. The first two, they were sketch shows. We have a very specific comedy when it comes to sketch comedy, which we think is very funny. People like it or don't. But we make each other laugh in a genuine way and remind people of their friendships. You can't, I mean, that's the lightning in the bottle.
Can't put a price on that, man.
So that's it. So not being cast, everybody just being funny friends, and you hear all the time, oh, so I have a Sal, like that kind of thing. So it's just all connecting. When we did the first season and they picked up, before we even aired, they picked up this back half. We were like, we got something here.
Wow.
Yeah, so they picked up the back half before we even aired. We had like 3 rough cuts in, and they were like, this thing's great.
That's so awesome. What was that feeling like?
Crazy. It was like, this is working, but then you don't want to lose it, right?
Right.
Then we got to season 2, and we're like, okay, now what? Like, we did everything, right? Like, okay, now what do we do? So then we had to start reinventing what we do. And then we had to start thinking of new things. And we had to push the envelope with them, too. The network a lot was like, we did this thing where I remember the first conversation I put in the show. It was about, in the back, Murr asked Sal to borrow his chapstick. And Sal, like, freaked out at him. And they got into a back and forth. They weren't even paying attention to what happened on the floor. And I'm doing the rough cut. And I was like, put that in. I was like, that's hysterical. Put that in. They're fighting about the chapstick. Who cares what's happening on the floor? I don't give a shit. Put that in. They put it in. It's hysterical. The first notes come back. They're like, that's really, really funny, but we're not sure if that's the show. And I said, I got on the phone. I was like, it can be the show. It should be the show. Let's put that in. It's funnier than what happened on the floor. I'm looking at the 8 minutes we have for this challenge. This is the funniest 2 minutes.
Wow.
Put it in. Back and forth, back and forth. Okay, they see my point. We put it in. From that moment, it was like, oh, we could do this. We could show a little bit of the machine.
Wow.
So then we started doing the whole thing with interstitials, where we'd be walking around and talking. And that's how people got to know our personalities.
Still waiting to tell myself I love myself.
Yeah, but you show yourself every night.
And it was just like,
dude.
we have to keep changing it and making it fresh. And then we found, like, in season 3, it was like, let's do a challenge where it used to just be give the thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, what if you can't laugh?
Damn shorty.
Damn shorty.
Damn shorty.
He laughed. That's a laugh. That's a laugh.
That is a
That was a
laugh.
laugh. He went.
And that opened up a whole can of worms. All our challenges, the goal was you can't laugh.
Yeah.
So it was like all this stuff, it just happened. And we always pushed ourselves in the beginning of seasons to think about stuff like that,
Before you would start, almost
Before
like
we
spring
start.
training before the season.
6
You're like,
weeks.
yeah.
6 weeks in that room.
Would you ever be in like text threads? Like that's to me seems like such a fun part of it too. Where once you have this show that you guys you're just so involved in to where you're out living your life and you get an idea whether you jot it down or text the group being like, "Yo, this for next season."
Yep. 100%.
Awesome.
Like if somebody says something, you're like, like, oh my God, I don't put me in a room with a bat.
Oh my
Right to the
God.
production companies, let's get some bats.